In this video, I'm going to give you a complete tour of my entire Starfield ship collection worth over 1 million credits. From a fast and nimble fighter, to a massive cargo ship, to everything in between, including this sleek, well-balanced ship. I even purchased one of the biggest ships in the game, the Conqueror, as well. And while some of these are considered starter ships, they still pack quite the punch, and some ships may go beyond the starter ship classification and actually require you to have a higher pilot rating, which you can upgrade in your skills tree right here. So first we're going to fly over to Neon City and visit the Stroud-Eklund area to purchase a behemoth of a ship, the Conqueror. And this is easily one of the biggest ships in the game. Costing 253,641 credits, this thing is an absolute beast, and it has it all. Great weapon systems, powerful engines, and tons of cargo space, and it can hold 2,240 cargo to be exact. Just seeing it parked on the landing pad is a sight to behold. Just look at how big this thing is. It towers over the entire landing pad, and it barely fits. It also barely clears the buildings of Neon City when it takes off. And just to further prove how massive this ship really is, let me show you how much work is required just to get to the cockpit. The cockpit is located at the very top of the ship, and the entrance is located at the bottom. So first, you'll need to enter from the landing bay on the ship's right side, and once inside, you'll use the ladder to go up 2 decks to the 3rd level. Then you'll walk through the cargo area and then take a left through the next corridor, which will bring you to what appears to be some type of interrogation holding cell area, and then you'll find the ladder and climb up it, making your way through what I call the war room. Next up, you'll turn right into the kitchen area and walk through the mess hall, where you'll finally see it, the access ladder to the ship's cockpit. And yes, that was a lot of work just to get to the cockpit, but totally worth it, because once you pilot this thing, it's like no other ship. And I absolutely love this cockpit, by the way. It feels extremely realistic, has this industrial feel to it, and the detail is just mind-blowing. And at your command are 3 weapon systems. The first one is the Atlanti 270B missile launcher, and while it only has a max power of 4, it has a decent range of 4,000, and it will decimate enemy ships with 68 hull damage and 68 shield damage as it fires 1 round at a time. And the second weapon on the list is the Dragon 241 laser, outputting 7 hull damage and 23 shield damage. This weapon pairs nicely with the other 2 weapons, but keep in mind you must draw ships in closer due to its range of 1,000. It also has a max power of 6. And the third weapon is the Mauler cannon, which dishes out 27.6 hull damage and 8.4 shield damage with max power of 4, and has a range of 800 with a fire rate of 2.5. And the engines on the Conqueror are absolute beasts, with an engine thrust of 36,660 and a total engine health of 468. The power required to push this big of a ship is evident as you stand on the launch pad looking up at these magnificent beauties. And this is all protected by the Warden SG-100 shield generator, which provides 848 shield to the ship and a 7% regen rate. And the Conqueror also has a hull health of 676. And the NG-210 grav drive is actually capable of jumping this monster of a ship, but only with a distance of 17 light years, so multiple jumps will be required for longer travel. So next up, we'll head out to Aquila City on the planet of Cheyenne and visit the starport, where we'll meet up with the ship technician there to see what kind of ships he's got for sale. There's one ship in particular that I've been wanting to show you all, and it's called the Watchdog II. Definitely one of my favorite starter ships in the game. The Watchdog II has this very aggressive look and stance to it, and it's clearly built for fast attacks and dogfighting. I just love the way this ship looks. With an A-class reactor, the Watchdog II cost only 83,037 credits, so it's the most affordable compared to the other ships on this list. And when gazing upon the Watchdog II on the launch pad, you'll notice just how high up the cockpit sits. You'll be surprised to hear this is actually a double-decker ship, and it has a cargo capacity of 650, which is more than the Galileo II and Frontier. You can access the landing bay right from the front, and once inside, you'll be greeted right away with another ladder and different working areas with monitors all around. This ship can hold a total of 3 crew, and once you make your way up to the top, you'll be able to access the cockpit, which, let's admit it, looks freaking incredible. And there's something about this cockpit that when you look at it, it just feels special. Maybe it's the way the windows are positioned around the cockpit or the way the other workstations surround it, but it just looks freaking awesome. And once you're in command of your new Watchdog II ship, you'll notice that it only has 2 weapon systems, laser and missile. The Flare P15 MWIR pulse laser with a max power of 6 has a range of 1250, a fire rate of 6.65, and it will do 3.14 hull damage and 10.5 shield damage. And the Watchdog II Sukisasu 13K missile launcher can deal out even more damage, 39.89 to be exact, for both hull and shield damage, and it has a range of 4250, max power of 3, and a fire rate of 1 missile at a time. And the Watchdog II's Amun 5 engine is fast enough for most basic dogfighting, with 12,400 engine thrust and overall health of 172. I also love the configuration and look of these engines too, it just looks awesome. And for protection, the ship has a Marduk 1010A shield generator, providing 648 shield and a 10% regen rate, but with only a max power of 4. Still, it gets the job done in simple dogfights. And its hull has 471 health, by the way. And finally, there's its R2000 Alpha grav drive, delivering 20 grav jump thrust with 61 overall health, and this gives the ship a jump capability of 27 light years. Not too bad, especially when comparing it to the Frontier's 19 light year jump capability. And oh yeah, let's not forget about its fuel tank, which holds 50 fuel. And now we're going to jump over to the New Atlantis starport to see what they have for sale, and this ship is something very special. It's called the Shieldbreaker, and not only does its paint job stand out, but the configuration of its engines is like no other ship. When you see these babies fire up in space, it's definitely a sight to behold. This is definitely a ship that turns heads, and its longer profile makes it an intimidating looking fighter too. And at a cost of 260,122 credits, it's definitely not cheap. And that's understandable because its weapon systems, engine, and grav drive are all top notch for its B-class rating. It can even hold a whopping 2,280 cargo as well. But before we jump into each individual stat, let's take a tour inside, shall we? So once inside, you'll notice just how easy it is to get from one end of the ship to the other. It's basically one long corridor that leads up to the cockpit. And the cockpit in the ship only sits one, but the visibility is excellent due to its massive windows, which give you an unobstructed view of everything in front of you. And when sitting in the cockpit, it's almost deceiving because it really feels like a small fighter, but the reality is you're actually piloting a pretty large ship here. And look up at the ceiling and you'll notice the exposed piping, giving it that raw industrial feel. And this ship can hold up to 5 crew members, and as you make your way through the ship, you'll pass the many different stations for your crew, and you'll hear the many different computer systems chirping away, which is a really nice touch. And the first room off to the side has various workstations and locker rooms throughout, and the second area is where all of the other stuff is, like the kitchen, sleeping quarters, and shower. And at the very back of the ship, you'll find the navigation table, which gives you access to the galaxy map and a small office with a cot, and a meeting room with a whiteboard. And enough talk, it's time to take this bad boy out into space and get into some serious trouble. Its Scorch S-80 MW pulse laser turret is very effective against shields, with 26.24 shield damage being delivered to enemy ships, as well as 8.39 hull damage being delivered as well. And its fire rate is 3, and it boasts an impressive max power of 12 and range of 1500. The next weapon, the Jashako Aniko RF Rapid Railgun, delivers 35.27 hull damage and 10.07 shield damage with a fire rate of 5 and a range of 1000. Its onboard missiles are no joke either, with the CE-29 missile launcher packing 60.89 hull and shield damage respectively. It has a range of 4000 and a fire rate of 1.25. And let's talk about those engines again. This Dun 31 engine has an engine thrust of 5,890, and when I flew it, I could definitely feel these engines, especially when boosting. It's absolutely insane. And the ship's shield, the 22T Defender, provides 976 shield and 7% regen rate for when battles get a bit dicey, and its hull is very strong with 940 health, which is very impressive indeed and should help you just in case your shields do fail. And if you need to make a quick jump, the Aurora 11G Grav Drive gets the job done, providing the ship with a jumping capability of 25 light years. And this next one is a beauty, and also one of my favorites, costing 171,561 credits. The Galileo II features a Class A reactor and is one beautiful ship, with a really nice exterior design and interior as well. The way the wings surround the cockpit gives it this aggressive stance, and most components, including the fuel tanks, which provide 1100 fuel by the way, are placed symmetrically on both sides, giving it this really cool look. It also sits impressively on the landing pad as well, making all of the other pilots a little bit jealous. And you will find its landing bay on its right side to the back area of the ship, and once inside, you'll notice right away that the cockpit and deck area still the show. This spacious deck offers seating areas for the entire crew, and I love the perspective the pilot gets when commanding the ship. It just looks so awesome. It also has some really cool interior lighting as well, and the large windows up front give some incredible views of space. The rest of the interior impresses too, with large windows for gazing at the stars, and this ship is also a double-decker with ladders for access to the different areas below. And these areas include a place for resting, eating, and showering, and another area for where the ship's pharmaceutical workbench is located, and it also includes a research station as well. And in terms of weapon systems, defenses, cargo space, and overall stats, this ship is very well rounded. It has a hull health of 563, and while it may not be able to carry nearly as much cargo as some of the other ships on this list, with a cargo capacity of 200, it can still carry a crew of 4, and it includes 3 different types of weapon systems, including particle, ballistic, and missile weapon systems. Starting off with the particle weapon system, it has a Ravager 20 MeV Auto Electron Beam by Light Sith. Classified as a Class A weapon, it has a range of 3250, fire rate of 6.65, and it will deal 11 damage to both shields and hulls. And its max power is only 4. And next up is the KE-20A Auto Cannon, which is a Class A ballistic weapon with a range of 800 and fire rate of 6.65. The auto cannon has a max power of 6 by default and can deal 14.4 damage to hulls and 4.8 damage to shields. And a ship isn't complete, in my opinion, without a missile system. Tucked under its wing, the Infiltrator SC-01 missile launcher can deal quite a bit of damage to enemy ships, dishing out 40 hull damage and 41 shield damage. It also has a significant range advantage with a range of 3,750, very impressive indeed. Now let's talk defensive capability, shall we? The Murdoch 1020A shield generator does a decent job of providing protection against incoming attacks, and it provides 776 shield to the ship, with a 10% regen rate, which is sufficient enough for most one-on-one encounters. And if you ever need to get away fast, its engines are no joke either. The SA4220 engine is the engine of choice for the Galileo II, and it sports a max power of 4, engine thrust of 13,820, and overall engine health of 168. And finally, there's the grav drive, which of course allows it to jump to other systems. The R3000 Alpha grav drive gives the Galileo II its jump range of 28 light years, and again, this is quite impressive over the Frontier, which can only do 19 light years. And we might as well jump back over to Aquila City because yes, they have another monster ship waiting to be purchased. We're going to buy something that can carry tons of cargo for hauling resources or tons of sandwiches, and that's where the Wagon Train comes in. Priced at 186,284 credits, this beast of a ship is perfect for carrying tons of cargo with a cargo capacity of 3,355. That means if you combine the Frontier, Galileo II, and the Watchdog II cargo capacities all together, they still wouldn't even come close. So we've got to check out this ship on the inside, so what we'll do is we'll head over to the ship's right side where the landing bay access is located. And as you make your way inside the ship, you're first welcomed by a medium-sized room with a bunch of computers, and then climbing up the ladder will give you access to some views of the outside as well as the ship's sprawling network of narrow hallways and medium-sized rooms. You'll quickly discover that there's traditional areas like for sleeping and relaxing, office areas, more hallways, more computer stations, an area dedicated to the pharmaceutical workbench, and even a quarters protected by a door that can only be opened by the computer by it. Next up is a room solely made for the many workbenches in the game, including a spacesuit workbench, weapon workbench, and industrial workbench. This ship really does have it all. And to access the cockpit, you have to make your way to the back of the ship, not the front of the ship, and climb up a ladder. And this cockpit may actually look familiar. That's because it's sharing the same cockpit as the Conqueror, but it's positioned quite differently, clear in the back of the ship, allowing you to overlook the entire ship and all of its cargo. And this made me feel like I was in control of one of those massive sea-bound cargo ships, you know, like the ones you see on the ocean, but I'm in space instead. And once piloting the ship, you'll have access to its two weapon systems, the Scorch P-60MW pulse laser turret and the Mauler 106T cannon. You'll notice that the pulse laser turret is a Class B laser due to the Wagon Train having a Class B reactor. The laser turret has max power of 4 and can deal 5 hull damage, 10 shield damage with a range of 1500 and a fire rate of 5. And this Mauler cannon is identical to the one from the Conqueror, so can do some pretty decent damage when used alongside its other weapons. And a ship this big needs large engines, which is where the SA4110 engines come in. With an impressive max power of 8, it has 24,440 engine thrust with 312 overall health, and the ship's Tower in 400 shield generator, which is viewable from the cockpit by the way, provides some decent protection with a max power of 5, 545 shield health, and a regen rate of 7%. And last but certainly not least, it has 722 hull health, its fuel tank provides 300 fuel, and the RD-1000 Beta grav drive is tucked away under the right hull and provides a jump capability of 24 light years. So there it is. I hope you liked this tour of some of the ships in Starfield. Of course, this is barely scratching the surface of what's out there, and don't forget that once you buy a ship, capture it, or earn it through other means, you can easily customize it with Starfield Ship Builder, which allows you to add individual parts, color the ship, and do so much more. And yes, there were even more ships that I could not fit into this video that I bought and toured as well, including this one from New Atlantis and then this gem from Neon City. So if you want to see more ships in upcoming videos, hit that like button and then leave a comment down below. And also don't forget to check out my full review of Starfield, which has tons of new gameplay, by clicking on the video or clicking on the link in the description down below. See you all later, astronauts, and have fun in Starfield.